Or mules and wagons. I remember too the experience of riding on the wagon without the body on it. When we haul logs and that kind of thing, we take the body off the wagon and just have the wagon frame there to hold the logs. I don't remember the occasion. I guess we'd been hauling some logs or something. But anyway, I was riding on the wagon through the woods there on that rail. And we were chugging along, and we ran over a limb with a wheel, and the limb popped up and caught me and threw me off, and the wagon ran across my legs, right across here. Fortunately, the wagon wasn't loaded. If it hadn't been, I probably had 2 broken legs in the process. But that was, again, a part of memory that along the way. Down in Dixie, where we lived too, our running water, we had a spring back down behind the house. That was our refrigerator for keeping the milk cool and for other purposes. But we had a well up there in the yard. And in the summertime especially, we would have to do a health department inspection of it, a visual inspection down and see if there's anything floating in it. And quite often we'd find that there were, and we'd have to drop a bucket in there and try to fish out those toad frogs that fell in the well and get them out. So we had to be careful, though, about the weight of that water. And my dad and mom were always cautioning us, and older children too, don't turn that windlass loose when that bucket is full of water, because you might get a knot bigger than one Clement had in his head with that handle from the windlass and drawing of water. Well, those are some additional thoughts I'd have along the way. I thought it might be of interest. I'm sure we'll come up with some others later. Right. I guess all of you know why I have problems. Yeah. Not all of you knew of my love for music. And that will make hard. Some of us still don't. That's what I'm going to tell you about. I guess that's why I'm married. Yeah.
She made you complete.
Well, we'll go with that. When I was 6 or 7 years old, at least in that range, I was at the Dixie Grammar School one day, and it was announced that the Hinson Brothers Hillbilly Band was coming to Dixie Grammar School Friday night. And they told us it would cost, I think it was 15 cents for under a certain age and 20 cents for adults. And I wanted to go real bad, as you can imagine. The only problem was I didn't have any money. And as great as our parents were, they didn't give us an allowance, because I don't think anybody did back then. He expected you to get the money, your spending money, by your own initiative, whatever it was. Maybe it was selling rabbits, which we did quite often, trap them, dress them, and sell them to him. Or selling eggs, selling chickens. So I sat down and thought, and the only thing I could think of at that time that I had was a little Bound Rooster. And so I asked Daddy if he would like to buy me a Bound Rooster so I could go to the Hinson performance. He said, yeah, you catch him, we'll weigh him up and see how much he's worth. So I caught him and brought him in and weighed him up, and Daddy said he's worth a quarter. And I said, but Daddy, I need 35 cents. I got to go. And he said, well, a quarter is all he's worth. And I said, all right, you give me a quarter. So I went back in the house and checked around. I remembered I had a dime. The only money I had to my name was that dime. So I said, boy, I'm just making. I can go there. And maybe I can get one of my brothers to go with me. So I checked around. The only one available was J.D. J.D., I don't know whether you remember this or not. But I begged J.D. and finally he said, all right, I'll go with you if you pay the way. I got the money, don't worry about it. So Friday night, J.D. and I went off to the Hinson Hillbilly performance. And boy, the music was beautiful.
Who was the Hinsons?
It was great.
Who were the Hinsons?
That's our cousins.
You don't know, Cecil, This was
James and Claude and Arlie.
Arlie and Caldwell. I think there were 4 of them.
Yeah.
And
Our first cousins.
yeah, first cousin on my mom's side. But anyway, the music was beautiful. We enjoyed it. Of course, I sat right on the front row. They played one tune I especially liked, and that tune was Chicken Reel. So after the performance, they gave you a chance to write down on a little piece of paper any special requests you had. So I was thinking, well, that little Bound Rooster was good. It's the only thing I had. So in memory of that Bound Rooster, I wrote down on a little piece of paper, Chicken Reel, and gave it to them, and they played it again. It was just as pretty the second time as it was the first time. Now, one other instance, I could think of a lot of things, and I'm sure all of you could too, that you would like to relate, but we don't have time for it. But I only thought of 2 I present today. Maybe later we can talk about some of the others. But I'm sure most of you remember when Grandmother Hinson died. We all went to her house, and it was a real sad time. And everybody was sitting around weeping and crying. And I decided maybe we ought to have a little bit of music. So I walked into the next room, and my granddad and grandmother Hinson had this wind-up phonograph. So I went in there, and some of you might remember this, went in there and wound that thing up with the record on.
And we had a problem with the flies back then, and it had this long pole with the paper split and tied along it, and one of the kids would have to stand there and swing it back and forth to keep the flies off the food while the grown-ups ate, and all the kids had to stay outside until they finished, and when they did, of course, they let us in, and we'd all enjoy it, which was all right. That was tradition back then, I understand. Boys, all the things that's happened that I can remember, I think it's pretty well covered, and this was Tim's fault. I'd just like to say that Gary and I were talking about this earlier this year, and we had decided to get some little tape recorders and maybe send them out to all the aunts and uncles and just tell them to record everything that they could think about, not only of the immediate family, but the aunts and uncles, because I can remember all the stories about Uncle Smiley and his family, and Uncle Manley, and different ones that came in. That some of them are right colorful, you know, as far as the stories they told. And I hope that maybe you will, that just as you think of it, maybe just jot it down or just record a little bit at a time. No matter how mixed up it is, it can be sorted out, you know, later on. I guess that's about all I had. I didn't jot down any notes.
Before you leave, tell them what you had to go through to get Becky, and why she's so valuable to you, and what happened to that skin baker on the way one time.
Oh, I don't know where I should go in all of this or not.
But just a brief highlight.
It's all Cecil's fault. He was dating this nurse, I think, at Lancaster, and she was from Charlotte. And then Clem got involved. He was dating some girl that was a friend of hers. And of course, I was next in line, and they said, well, I'd like to go up there too. We got a girl up there we'd like you to meet. So they fixed me up with Becky, and that's what happened. I don't know how I had to go through all this challenge to get there, but we finally did. At least that's the best thing that ever happened.
It's one of the ones that see about.
How about that one trip where you wrecked the car, you know, way back?
Well,
I almost put you out.
that was graduation night, I believe. And anyhow, we were kind of late getting away, and
We had a fight.
Yeah, we did.
Cigarette. We were
I
late.
had a fight that night. Anyhow,
We wasn't concentrating on driving too well.
on the way back, I was late and driving too fast and went to sleep. Had these guardrails on the side of the road with concrete things to help him up. And the Studebaker jumped on his guardrail and went down, struck a bunch of them down, and landed there down the bank on the lead. But anyhow, almost tore the thing up. And someone I woke up, I was beat black and blue, I think, my nose and a little bone in my breast, I don't think was broken. But anyhow, a fella that lived back there, he heard all this going on, and he came down and got me out to the Lancaster to Shelby's house, and he took me to the doctor, and they said, well, I'd survive, I thought. They thought so. Anyhow, that was about the end of that, I think.
She was worth it all, though.
Oh, yeah, she's working. Okay.
I'm not a speaker, and I get extremely nervous when I have to stand up in front of people, so if I pass out, just pick me up.
We're not people, we're man.
Well, I'm still people. The thing that popped foremost in my mind was the day that Lexi and I went to Carson's on a bicycle. I was doing the pedaling, and he was sitting on the seat behind me, and I sort of lost balance, and his foot went into the train, and it chewed his foot all up. And he was a lot bigger than I was, but I picked him up and carried him as far as from here, I guess, to the restroom, over to Miss Croxton's house, and she took us to the doctor, and the doctor said his foot all up. But you just don't know what strength you have until you get scared to death. And one day when Mom and all the ladies in the community were making a quilt, they decided to stop and go eat lunch. And while they were all in the kitchen laughing and talking and eating, the old pet goat came in the bedroom door, because we didn't have screens back then. And he got right up in the middle of the quilt and chewed a great big hole in it. Grandmama got after him with a broom and chased him back outside, and he got to the top of the chicken pen and just went, "Dad, Dad!" And she said that goat lady was making fun of her, and she wanted to kill him. Talking about spring, where we had to keep our milk and keep things cool, I was always going down to the spring barefooted. We had to pass under the pear trees. And when the pears were on the ground, there were always yellow jackets, and I remember I had to do a dance every time I went down that way, because I always stepped on yellow jackets. And my favorite place to play was down in the cellar. There was a red dirt cellar that was dug out under the house, where Mama kept all her canned stuff and all her potatoes and things. And me and Ann Taylor used to play down in the cellar. And we had one of the first radios in the community. And all the neighbors would come over to our house, and they'd sit around the fireplace, and we'd all listen to the Grand Ole Opry on Saturday night.
That was Shelby's contribution. When he started making money, he bought the radio from Sears. I remember that battery radio.
But it caused Cecil to be real fast on the draw. He would come home from school, he'd get all his chores done and milk all those cows and come plop back in to hear the Lone Ranger every day. And, you know, you never think of it snowing on Easter, but when I was a little girl, I remember one Easter, Oline had a great big wool felt Easter bonnet, and she wore it to church, and it snowed all over that beautiful pink Easter bonnet. You remember that? And we had to walk to school. There weren't any school buses back then. If you didn't go in a horse and buggy, you had to walk. And I wore long cotton stockings and lace-up shoes. And during the flu season, I always had to wear acidity on a string around my neck to ward off the flu germs. And it stunk to high heaven. I don't know what it had in it. It must have had garlic or something else, but that was to ward off flu germs. And when I was going to Hopewell to school, we called it Dixie. Miss Eunice was my teacher in first, second, and third grade, and Mr. Ben was my teacher in fourth grade till we moved uptown to Beaufort, and then I had Mr. Funderburg. But I remember sitting in the fifth grade behind one of your Adams and watching the lice crawl in her hair. In the first grade, I remember Miss Eunice's beautiful fingernails. They were all painted bright red, and back then the teachers didn't get married because they had to totally dedicate themselves to education. And one day, being so shy, she sent me to the to the board, to write something on the board, and I needed to go out to the outhouse, and it was a big one too, it had 6 holes in it. But I was too shy to ask her to go, and I couldn't hold it any longer, so I just wet the floor, and you know what she did? She got my sweetheart, whose name was Danny Reed Vander, to go get the mop and mop that up, and I could have just died. I'll never get over that. And on the way home, we learned all kinds of things from our more educated brothers. You know, they would tell you the whys and wherefores of everything. One day I learned where babies came from, and I never knew that before. They came from under cabbage leaves. We had some hired help who were black family that lived nearby. The youngest one was named Wiley. And Wiley loved to come over to our house and carry in stove wood for Mama. And every time he'd bring in a load of wood, Mama would give him a biscuit. And he would carry load after load after load. And I don't see how one little black boy could hold that many biscuits, but he would just do it all afternoon. His grandma would let him. And he had a brother, Ernest, who also helped, and he was about Clement's age, I think. One day, Ernest decided he wanted to drive the team home from the field, and Wiley or the others wouldn't let him. So what he did when he went to get the drinking water was put arsenic in it. He was going to poison everybody in the field so he could drive the team home. And I don't know how they caught up with him, but they did catch up with him, and we didn't drink water. When I was about 4 years old, my cousin Clyde lived up on the hill from me, and his mother died, so Mama took that whole family in and raised them too till Mama be married again. And Clyde and I would always invariably wander off into the woods or into the gardens or over into the far fields. And one day we wandered way over into a hot pepper patch, and we decided we would eat ourselves some hot pepper. We got it all over our hands and rubbed it all in our eyes, and we